All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to, I do believe this is why TBC is crap compared to Classic World of Warcraft Part 2. When I did the first video, I got a lot of comments in the comment section, got a lot of downvotes too, which was kind of interesting, but I expected that, to be perfectly honest. It was really interesting to see about 30% of people were actually agreeing with me by the votes, but I can't really trust that because I had a very provocative, whatchamacallit, thumbnail. So a lot of people probably didn't even watch the video and just downvoted it anyways. There was, yeah, anyways, let's get into this because I'm pretty sure I made some good points in the first video, but I didn't really explain certain elements very clearly, I think. So we're going to try this again. All right, not from the ground up. You can go watch the previous video. Okay, so the point I made at the start and the point I made at the end of the video, it's like an hour long video or some crap like that. The point I made at the start is, even though you're seeing like green check marks because I'm a classic WoW fanboy, and you're seeing red X marks over here because I don't like TBC, you could just as easily switch these check marks around whether or not you like TBC as opposed to Classic World of Warcraft. So the point I'm trying to make here is that when you're actually rating the whether or not a game is good or bad, like metrics wise, right? There's really like two competing thought processes. And first is, it's just like how many people like playing it, period, like how popular is it, and therefore how much money does it make, right? So the first one is just its popularity. Okay, but the second one is how well does it cater to a like specific audience, if that makes any sense, right? So it's like how well does the game perform in its genre, catering to a specific demographics of the player base population, right? We had a pie chart in the previous one, so forth and so on. You get the idea of demographics, yada, yada, yada. Your socializers, your killers, your achievers, your explorers, and everything else in between, your PvEers, your PvPers, and everything in between, right? So, Classic World of Warcraft is very good at catering to a certain type of player. Typically, these players are more of a socializer in nature. They're more of a laid-back person in nature. They're not very interested. Like they might like easy PVE content. They don't want hard PvP content. They like being able to go to work and then come home and spend time with the kids, and then still get into these easy raids where they can gear out their characters almost completely in PvE gear to go use in PvP, right? Like stuff like that. There's a lot of things that certain people would absolutely love about Classic World of Warcraft that another group of people would absolutely despise about Classic World of Warcraft. So basically, I think that between Burning Crusade and Classic World of Warcraft, you have a perfect game. All right, let me repeat that. If you have Classic World of Warcraft, fresh servers rolling off the line, and you have Burning Crusade fresh servers rolling off the line, you have a perfect game. You have a game that both maximizes its popularity and it maximizes how well it caters to its audience group. Because even though it's the holy grail of game design, no game can really cater to everyone simultaneously 100% of the time. However, two games can cater to the vast majority of a player base in a given genre very, very easily. And I think World of Warcraft Classic and Burning Crusade do this quite well. Anyways, let's go on over here and I'll actually try. I'm going to pause the video real fast and we'll try to visualize this. Okay, so hopefully this visualization here will do. All right, so this visualization is attempting to track, or to give an example of tracking a popularity of a game versus how well the game caters to a specific audience of people. So basically what I have here is these numbers are supposed to be out of 10, right? But you can't really do like a plus and minus system for this. So what, maybe I could, but I'm a dumbass, so moving on. So what the green number here represents is people who absolutely love Classic World of Warcraft for some reason. Like some aspect of Classic World of Warcraft really caters to them and they absolutely love it, right? So these are the guys who are catered to Classic World of Warcraft. The blue number represents a group of people who like the game the way it is, but there are also other elements that they really don't like about the game. So they're kind of split, right? They're also people who will keep playing the game. They're like, well, I like these aspects of Classic World of Warcraft, but I also don't like these other aspects of Classic World of Warcraft, but I'll still play the game because, the game, right? This red number over here represents people who really don't like Classic World of Warcraft for some reason. And again, this is out of 10, right? 7 plus 3 equals 10. They really don't like Classic WoW for whatever reason, and so they just don't play the game, okay? So what this means is, in Classic World of Warcraft, we can actually track like its overall popularity, and we can track how well it caters to specific people who really like certain aspects of the game. So what the Classic WoW would, in this case, would have like a 7 out of 10 in popularity, but it would be a 5 out of 10 in how well it caters to its player base. We switch on over to TBC, and we see kind of reversal, right? TBC will pick up the 3 people that aren't playing Classic WoW, like 100%, no problem, right? Because anything that they didn't like in Classic World of Warcraft, like they don't like how easy the raids are, they don't like the PvP gearing system, they don't like that they can't flex on people, blah 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 blah, like whatever it is that you don't like is being taken care of in TBC. However, TBC is also cutting out all of the things that, or a great deal of the things that people like about Classic World of Warcraft. It's not going to take them very long playing TBC before they realize this shit. Many of us who are doing our research before going into TBC have already kind of realized this, right? Like, I was excited about playing TBC for a bit until I started doing my research into it, and I discovered that this is definitely not something that I am going to be into. Fuck off. Fuck off. No, seriously, fuck off. Okay, thank you. Jesus. Yeah, so I'm in basically this category over here. Anyways, how do we determine the metric of a game? Like how good it is, right? And the answer is it's a little complicated. So if you went off like sheer popularity, if you were like a business person, how much money are we making? You might think that Classic WoW is the moneymaker because it's going to be 7 out of 10 in popularity. More people are just going to play it in general, and you wouldn't be wrong. TBC, however, is like only 5 out of 10 pop, and it's not even very good at catering to people at 3 out of 10. But the trick with catering is that you can't cater to everybody, right? You can't make everybody happy. Therefore, you have to compare like catering within its genre, like how well. A good example would be Diablo 2 versus Path of Exile, right? Before Path of Exile came out, the only game that really catered to that type of player was Diablo 2. So even though Diablo 2 had a very small population, it was still the very best at catering to that specific audience, and no other game could match it. Then comes out Path of Exile, and Path of Exile ends up stealing that group of players away from Diablo 2, and it becomes the best game possible for catering to that group of people. So as far as a game that specifically caters to this group of people, TBC is number 1. TBC is way better than Classic World of Warcraft if you are this type of player right here, and you might even really be interested in Classic. You might not mind Classic World of Warcraft TBC at all if you're in this group over here, right? You follow me on this one. Okay, so this is why I say that between Classic World of Warcraft and TBC, you have a perfect game. Because between Classic World of Warcraft and TBC, you're going to have 10 out of 10 people who are interested in your game. And no other... and you're going to be the best in the entire genre at doing that, if that makes sense. This is why it is so devastating and so retarded. It is literally a bad business decision for Blizzard not to have fresh Classic WoW servers coming out when they're having TBC coming out. So it's kind of like Blizzard needs to learn this lesson on their own. Like they are objectively bad enough game designers that they cannot look through their crystal ball and see what's going to happen in TBC. In TBC, what is going to happen is you're going to pick up the 3, you're going to retain the 2, and you're going to lose the majority of this 5. It won't happen within like the first couple months of TBC, but once this group figures out that whatever they loved about Classic World of Warcraft is gone, then they're going to leave the game, and you're going to watch the popularity of TBC go, yeah, basically, right? And the outcry for fresh Classic WoW servers will start up again because TBC is only really, it's going to be able to sustain about a 5 out of 10 pop, but it's only going to be able to cater to about a 3 out of 10 population, in my personal opinion. If that makes sense. And this is what we have in Classic WoW right now. In Classic World of Warcraft, we've got 5 out of like 50% of the people aren't complaining at all, right? 2 out of 5 are 2 out of 10 are doing a little bit of complaining, but then you have 3 out of 10 are doing probably a lot of complaining about Classic World of Warcraft, if they're even complaining at all. Like, it might be just these people are complaining, or it might be there might be a lot of red 3s that are playing Classic World of Warcraft that aren't happy with it, but it's just kind of their job, and so they end up like bitching at it. You know what I mean? And they're going to get everything they want in TBC. Like, they are going to get everything they want in TBC, and I am 100% happy for you. I am happy for you that TBC exists. What I'm not happy about is the fact that Classic World of Warcraft, for the foreseeable future, is not going to exist. We may roll out with servers like Fresh Classic, you know, blah 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 blah. It's like, shut the fuck up. You're completely retarded if you think that the Classic WoW community is going to steal jack shit from the TBC community. You are objectively insane. So, anyways, that's kind of my take on it in general. So, Blizzard is a company, all right? And Blizzard literally does not give a shit how well their game caters to a specific audience. They just care about its popularity, because the popularity is what's going to make them money. However, in Classic WoW and TBC's case, the best popularity achievement is going to be to have both, obviously, right? So this is why I find it a fascinating business decision on Blizzard's part for them to come out with only TBC and then not Fresh Classic servers. The only thing I can think of is maybe this is like an egotistical play on their part. Like, they're still of a think you do, but you don't mindset about Classic WoW, and they want to kind of see how much that's going to play out with TBC, right? Because TBC has all the changes that retail has, or a lot of the changes that you see in retail. And they're going to get a rude awakening, to be perfectly honest with them. It's not going to be as popular as you think. So, but between the two games, you have a perfect game. So, back here. So, the argument I was making in general is that I think Classic, how do I put this? TBC is objectively a worse game than Classic World of Warcraft, both from a catering perspective and from a metrics, a popularity perspective. It is objectively worse, okay? You're a 5 out of 10 in pop, and you're a 3 out of 10 in your ability to cater. But that doesn't mean that it's not awesome when you put the two together, right? If you put Classic WoW together along with TBC, you have a perfect game. Because TBC is still amazing at catering to the audience that it caters to, whereas Classic World of Warcraft does not. There are some things that, or a Classic World of Warcraft, Classic World of Warcraft does not. And I think I failed to make that observation in my previous video. So I'm putting my foot down on this one. Classic WoW and TBC go together like peanut butter and jelly. They are together a perfect game at both maximizing popularity and maximizing what you like out of your MMO or massive online multiplayer RPG, right? However, to have Burning Crusade come out as a standalone, right? If you're gonna say, hey, we're coming out with Burning Crusade, and we're not coming out with Fresh Classic servers, and you are expecting Burning Crusade to outperform Classic servers for anything more than like 3 months, you are actually insane. I believe you are crazy, and you just haven't really done. You don't really know the metrics aspect of that, if that makes any sense. Because, again, there's going to be a lot of people who do not like Burning Crusade for a variety of reasons. It might be as simple as something like, to give you an example of the major split between Classic World of Warcraft and Burning Crusade, it comes down to PVE and PVP, okay? In Classic World of Warcraft, PVE is way easier than it will be in TBC. So in Classic World of Warcraft, PVE is like checkers, and Burning Crusade PVE is going to be like chess, right? Like that is going to be the shift there. But there's a lot to love. There's a lot to love about each, right? There's a lot to love about having easy raids, and there's a lot to love about having hard raids. And since you can't both have easy raids and hard raids, unless you do something like I suggest over here, you're going to lose people in a certain group, and you're going to gain people in another group. When we switch over to PvP, the exact same thing happens, but in reverse. Classic World of Warcraft PvP is simultaneously like chess and like checkers, depending upon whatever the fuck you're doing. But then in TBC, it is definitively like checkers more than chess. And you can see this in the arena system. Mind you, I do a lot of research on the World of Warcraft Burning Crusade PvP system. So if you disagree with this, then it's probably the case that you're just missing out on information. So, for example, in Classic World of Warcraft, I'll give you a primary example, right? So in Classic World of Warcraft, okay, so what is the argument for the PvP system is not checkers in TBC, it's actually chess? Well, the answer is that in Classic World of Warcraft, to get your PvP gear, you either have to engage in a non-skill based, just put in the metric shit ton of hours PvP system known as the ranking system, or you can go into the PvE content side of things, and you can just raid log your way to a gear set that is on par, if not superior, than the gear that you can get from the ranking set, right? Meaning that in both systems that you gear yourself out in Classic World of Warcraft, it doesn't require any real skill, right? Now, on what that in theory makes it checkers, not chess. The problem with that statement is the moment you get your gear, getting your gear is checkers, not chess in Classic World of Warcraft. But the moment you try to actually PvP in your gear, you are in a way more complicated situation than you are in an actual Burning Crusade, if that makes sense. So the PvP itself, when it comes down to actually doing PvP in Classic World of Warcraft versus Burning Crusade, like the 1v1, the 2v2, the 3v3, shit is way more complicated in Classic WoW than it is in Burning Crusade. So it is chess versus checkers. This is why I say that it's checkers, not chess, when it comes to getting the gear for in Classic World of Warcraft compared to TBC. It is chess in TBC when it comes to trying to get your gear. You actually have to be a skilled person who can optimize their gear and play somewhat decently in order to get your gear in the TBC PvP system. There is no PvE gear whatsoever to save your ass in TBC as far as PvP is concerned. However, once you get down to the actual PvP in TBC, it is cookie cutter as fuck. Right? It is absolutely dog shit shallow. And it's dog shit shallow for a variety of reasons. For example, there's a lot less PvP specs running around. So the example I gave was you bump into a certain class under any PvP circle. Okay, so the best example would be... it's really complicated. Let's say they came out with Arena in Classic World of Warcraft, right? Like, it's not worth anything. You don't get honor points out of it or anything. You can just do Arena in Classic World of Warcraft. Would the Arena in Classic World of Warcraft be way more complex than the Arena in Burning Crusade? Yes or no? And the answer is it would definitely be more complicated because there's more trinkets and stuff going around, and the combat system is a little bit more bursty, like that kind of stuff, and there's a lot more PvP specs rolling around. But more importantly, if you were doing Arena in Classic World of Warcraft, you would have engineering in Arena. Because that's just Classic World of Warcraft. Classic World of Warcraft PvP is you use engineering, whereas in TBC you don't use engineering. So it just makes things a million times more intricate once you actually engage in the PvP system. You can also argue that okay, so let's say you disagree with me on that completely, because there is a line of argumentation that says that Palatine, you are actually wrong. There's a lot more skill involved in TBC PvP, right? But then you get into, well, dueling is dead in TBC, and a world PvP is dead in TBC, and you actually require skill in TBC, and blah 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 blah. The hell am I going on with this? I just lost my train of thought because there's like a car horn that won't shut up outside. Let me pause the video for a second until I get my thoughts back. Okay, I got it. All right, so let's say that you disagree with me entirely that and you want to say that the PvP system in Burning Crusade, or the PvP in Burning Crusade, not just the system, but the PvP in Burning Crusade is superior. It's chess, not checkers, compared to what it is in Classic World of Warcraft. You can legitimately make that argument, and there's enough to support it. It's one of those arguments where it's like, you got 10 good points for why it's checkers and not chess, but then the other guys have 10 good points why it's chess, not checkers, and we're just kind of stuck there going, okay, well, it's just different, I guess. It's not better or worse. But then you get into to this other aspect of it where it's like, in Classic World of Warcraft, no matter how skilled or unskilled you are at PvP, you can get your PvP gear, right? It is a fact that in Classic World of Warcraft, no matter how skilled or unskilled of a player you are in PvP, or even in PvE, you can inevitably get your PvP gear. Or get a PvP set that makes you quite formidable in PvP. It gets in TBC, you cannot objectively do this, right? In TBC, like 30% of the human population that cannot PvP to save their life, but they want to PvP, like they have no skill. They got no game in PvP whatsoever. Now they cannot even get their gear. So in Classic World of Warcraft, at least Billy the dipshit, it gets worse, right? So it's like, take Billy in Classic World of Warcraft. Billy is like an ex-nomer for ex-nomer. Is that proper? It's Billy just means a player that is horrifyingly unskilled. Okay, Billy, for whatever reason, Billy can't get his PvP gear in TBC, and Billy cannot even pretend that he is a good PvPer in Burning Crusade, right? Because when he's just going to get smashed in the arena. It's going to be painfully obvious that he's got no arena ranking whatsoever. He cannot even pretend to himself that he's a good PvPer, and he cannot even get the gear. He is a miserable motherfucker in Burning Crusade Classic. Now, does that mean it's chess, not checkers for him? Well, like I said previously, I think that getting your gear if your PvP gear in TBC is chess, not checkers. And in Classic World of Warcraft, getting your gear is stupidly easy, but that doesn't mean you're good at PvP, right? So Billy is still really going to like Classic World of Warcraft over Burning Crusade because, one, at least he can get his fucking PvP gear, and then with the PvP gear, he can at least beat people who are less geared than him, and there's no ranking system so that he cannot pretend. So there's no ranking system, so he can still at least pretend that he's a good PvPer, if that makes any sense, right? So and you have to ask yourself, what percent of the population is actually going to be able to get a gladiator in TBC? And the answer is maybe 50%. Maybe 50% of PvPers that fancy themselves good PvPers are going to not be able to get their gear in their PvP gear in TBC, and they have no recourse because they can't go to PvE and get the gear. They're not going to be happy with the Burning Crusade system for getting rank gear or getting PvP gear. They're going to quit. Okay, so now 50%, all the shitters have quitted. All the shitter PvPers have quitted TBC because they can't get their gear. They can't even pretend they're good at PvP. All right. What does that do to the PvP system? The argument I'm basically making here is you guys think that the TBC gearing system, PvP gearing system, is superior to World of Warcraft, but then you start looking at the metrics over time that are going to start compounding upon the system, and it gets really bad really quick. So now let's say 50% of the player base has quit TBC, the PvPers have quit because they're not skilled enough to pretend or to get the gear in TBC. Okay, what that means is now you have 50% of now the skilled player base in TBC are stuck competing in a system where only 50% of them can actually get their gear in TBC, right? So what that means is it's during Arena Season 1, it'll be really easy for the skilled player base to get their gear because there's a lot of shitters running around. By the time Arena Season 2 or Arena Season 3 rolls around, all the shitters have quit the game. And so now you're in a system where it's like only half of you can get the gear, but there's no bad people to prey upon anymore, if that makes any sense. And this is both a good thing and a bad thing because it means that if you're able to get Gladiator in like Season 2 or Season 3, it actually means something. It means that you're really good. Like, you're no longer 50%, a top 50%, you're technically top 25%. And then the cycle is going to repeat itself, kind of a thing, where a lot of the people, they get angry and they quit the game, but it'll be less, like maybe 20% of the people quit the game. And so by the time you get to the end, it starts... you can start really flexing on people like, oh, we're in Arena Season 3 and I'm able to get Gladiator. That probably means that I'm top, like, 20% of the total PvPers. Meanwhile, everyone who quit the PvP system from TBC is over in Classic World of Warcraft for all the reasons they didn't like the system in Burning Crusade. So, in my opinion, the way I look at it is it's like, TBC is objectively superior, is an objectively superior game for PvEers. It might be an objectively inferior game for socializers. TBC is an objectively superior game for certain types of PvPers, but it's also an objectively inferior game for certain types, the other type of PvPer, if that makes sense. So again, my conclusion is that between these two games, where the hell is my mouse? Fuck off. Between these two games, you have a perfect game. Okay, between World of Warcraft Classic and Burning Crusade, you have a perfect game that both maximizes popularity and caters to different types of people as much as possible. One game is more geared towards catering to the shitters. The other game is more catering to the people who actually want to, like, perform and flex and that kind of stuff, right? But this does not change the fact that Classic World of Warcraft is still an objectively superior game by both metrics than TBC. It is both a superior game on its just raw popularity, and it is going to be a superior game both upon what percentage of the player base it can actually cater to. It might not be a superior game from like an actual like raw catering perspective, because those are kind of different metrics. Like to say that this is superior is is also saying that it's superior because of its popularity, but it's like the catering metrics are really difficult because it's like, hey, if you're this small group of people that really loves this aspect of the game and TBC has got it and no other game's got it, you can't tell me that TBC isn't better for that group. And I would have to 100% agree with you, right? There's like, yeah, TBC has got whatever this small group of red people and a good chunk of this blue people like about World of Warcraft, TBC has got it for them, like in spades, more than likely. So, the last thing to say is, why is the title, if I believe this, why is the title of the first video and the title of this part 2 video that TBC is a shitty game compared to Classic World of Warcraft? The answer is that so far we've been looking at the metrics of Classic World of Warcraft from a player-based perspective, right? So from a player-based perspective, we're only interested in how popular is the game and then how well does it cater to what I love about a game, right? In that case, then Classic World of Warcraft is an amazing game, and TBC is also an amazing game, and so forth and so on. However, if you're looking at your game purely from a game designer's perspective, or you're looking at your game from like a business perspective, right? You're not interested so much in how well your game caters to a population as in what's the total popularity of the game. The holy grail of any game is a game that is both 10 out of 10 in popularity and 10 out of 10 in its ability to cater to its audience, which almost no game is. It's virtually impossible to get out to get like a 10 out of 10 in popularity and a 10 out of 10 in catering. It's even really hard to get super high numbers. Like classic World of Warcraft is an amazing fucking game, period, because it manages to get really high numbers both in the catering aspect and in the popularity aspect. So, for example, any game that's able to get like a 7 out of 10 popularity and like a 7 out of 10 in catering is a massive success. That is a holy grail game right there. Another example would probably be like Halo. Halo ends up for its time ended up getting like it was really popular with all types of first person shooters, and it also did really good catering at the same time. So from a game design perspective and from a business perspective and from a player base perspective taken in totality, World of Warcraft is just classic, is just a superior game to TBC. However, it is beyond the realm of arguing with me that classic World of Warcraft and TBC put together, and possibly the original Trinity, like classic WoW, TBC, and Wrath of the Lich King together, combined, blow everything else out of the water. Because once you start combining the two of them, you end up getting like 10 out of 10 games, if that makes sense, right? Because the catering is there and the popularity is there to follow suit. So that's just kind of my view on it. This is why I think this is why I can't stand the fact that Blizzard isn't coming out with fresh servers in line with TBC. I guess they want to see firsthand how popular TBC is going to be. Even with all of there's a lot of changes from classic World of Warcraft that happen in TBC that are also changes that are live and in effect in retail, like the increased difficulty of the raiding, the lack of needing to play an actual World of Warcraft, meaning that you get your PvP gear purely from PvPing and not just from PvEing. That's not really what makes WoW awesome, though. It's the fact that the PvP, you can gear out in PvE easily. That makes it awesome. I guess they just want to see, and I'm just looking at you guys like, I can't stand it when people are trying to tell me that TBC is going to be more popular than classic World of Warcraft. I think TBC could be more popular than WoW, and I just want to like, oh my god, what are you talking about? It's like the game designer in me just wants to scream at you about demographics, right? And the philosopher in me wants to scream to you about average human IQs and skill levels, if that makes any sense. And I'm like, no, if you're a shitter player, like if you're a bad PvPer or you're a bad PvEer, you're a Billy the dipshit, you are not going to have a fun time in TBC. TBC is going to fuck you up. Right? If you're a Billy the dipshit PvPer, you're going to get fucked in TBC. If you're a Billy the dipshit PvEer, you're going to get fucked in TBC. Because in both cases, the skill level in order to do anything has increased substantially. Meanwhile, in classic World of Warcraft, you can get away 100% being a Billy the dipshit, either in PvP or PvE, and just do whatever you want. It's much more of a sandbox RPG because the difficulty... Increasing difficulty of a game actually reduces its popularity, is what I'm trying to say. And you can see this with a variety of games. Like, there's a lot of, like, if you look at, like, the most popular games of all time, the difficulty of them is set very low because the vast majority of human beings are actually not skilled players. So you end up polarizing your population to the people who want to play the game and people who don't want to play the game, the more you make the game more and more difficult. Mind you, there are still ways to get around that, though, where you do things like this. So it's like, yeah, you're a shitter, but we still have the ability for you to get your gear. But this also makes other people unhappy, blah, blah, blah. I'll just shut up now. It's an ocean of complexity to talk about, but just know that I think between World of Warcraft Burning Crusade and Burning Crusade Classic, we have a perfect game. If you had to make me pick one or the other and try to say which is objectively the better game, it would be World of Warcraft Classic. Just because it does a better job of catering demographically. It does a better job in popularity demographically. TBC is still amazing for catering to anybody that classic WoW that did not like classic WoW. So the perfect game is Burning Crusade and classic World of Warcraft, and then maybe Wrath of the Lich King. I haven't looked too much into Wrath of the Lich King, so I'm not really sure what demographics... I imagine Wrath of the Lich King, like if I had to take a guess... Okay. if I had to take a guess, because Wrath of the Lich King was very popular, notice that our blue here isn't really happy, right? Our blue here is like, okay, I'm kind of happy with Classic World of Warcraft, but I'm not super happy with it. And then our blue here also isn't really super happy at the same time. I'm wondering if what happens in Wrath of the Lich King is our blue becomes quite happy in Wrath of the Lich King, and then the green three and or my bad, the five and the three here are become like a blue in Wrath of the Lich King, right? And this kind of explains why Wrath of the Lich King is so popular. Like a Wrath of the Lich King might look something like the blue 2 is super happy, and then 3 and 5, like 3 might also be super happy in Wrath of the Lich King. And then you pick up like half of the 5 in Wrath of the Lich King, because there's a lot of the complexity of PvP and the gearing comes back, at least in Wrath of the Lich King. So my understanding is that in TBC there's almost no PvE gear that is useful in PvP. But then comes Wrath of the Lich King, which kind of fixes that problem, right? You can gear out both from the PvP system, or you can gear out from the PvE system, right? And so that might end up really catering to half of this 3 here. So if you pick up the 3, you pick up the 2, and then you pick up half of the 5, you end up with like a 7.5 out of 10 game, which would make sense based around its historical popularity. I'm very curious to look into that from a game designer's perspective. But anyway, these are just my thoughts on it. I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. Like, how do I put this? I'm pretty sure there's enough nebulousness in this argument in general that, again, I think the way it works is it's like I have 10 good points that are making me think I'm right, but then other people also have 10 good points against me. So it might just be like a coin flip as to who's right or who's wrong here. On the things that I absolutely don't think I'm wrong are on like the metrics. I absolutely do not think that I'm wrong based upon what I know about the human condition and what I know about the player base, that TBC will have a less popular overall popularity score than TBC. It's just going to have less people that want to play TBC compared to Classic World of Warcraft. And you cannot argue with me on this, because if you are a bad player, you can get by just fine in Classic World of Warcraft. No problems, both in PvP and in PvE. But if you are a shitty player going into TBC, you're going to have a bad time. So you're either going to improve out of a shitty player into a better player, or you're just going to run back screaming to mommy with Classic World of Warcraft. Like, that's basically what's going to happen. Anyways, I'm going to end the video here, and Deus Vult, boys.